The billionaire sheikh stood motionless by the towering window, his silhouette etched against the endless desert sunrise, a fortress of cold ambition where no warmth dared trespass. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, traced the fragile figure trembling at a distant doorway. "I will give my whole salary if you translate this," the maid dared mutter beneath her breath, unaware the words carved a crack in his icy facade. The emirate sparkled with an otherworldly glow. Palaces draped in golden tapestries shimmered under the sun's first kiss, while silk curtains whispered secrets as an exotic breeze carried the scent of frankincense and rare spices through vast marble halls. Diamonds caught glints from crystal chandeliers and scattered prisms across the polished floors, echoing the endless wealth surrounding the sheikh, an empire both magnificent and suffocating. He moved with deliberate grace, each step a command of power. His gaze pierced the modest maid standing before him. Her hands, callous from endless chores, trembled, yet held a fire that no palace luxury could smother. She dared to meet his glare, her chest rising with steady breaths, defying her trembling heart. To him, she was nothing but a fleeting amusement, a whisper lost in his grand world. Yet beneath her humble guise, a storm brewed. With a voice as sharp as desert winds, he scoffed, "You believe your paltry dreams hold any weight in my presence? Such folly. You offer only laughter in exchange for your meager salary." Contempt dripped from every syllable, mocking her every word. Her eyes flashed, a challenge and a plea tangled in silence. This was no ordinary servant. This was a soul refusing to be crushed. Their first clash ignited, a battle woven with silent tensions. He was frosted arrogance, she smoldering resilience. In the brief flickers of their exchanges, their untouched glances, the unspoken refusals, a complicated dance began. The sheikh's pride pushed against the quiet strength radiating from the maid. Each word, each glance, built a fragile bridge between disdain and something dangerously close to fascination. But as he prepared another cutting remark, a secret escaped her lips, carried on a whispered breath. Something in her confession froze the air between them. His cold armor cracked. That single revelation, a name, a past, a truth veiled beneath servitude, did what no luxury or power could. It stopped him cold. The billionaire sheikh, so certain and unyielding, found himself trapped, frozen not only by the desert chill, but by an emotion he refused to name. Before the next secret of this emirate unfolds, quickly check if you're already part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies will still be written, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave your like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh already intrigues you. Tell me in the comments, from which city do you follow this saga? And what twist do you think will come next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to continue. Thank you for being with us. The whisper of her confession lingered in the heavy air, a fragile thread pulling at the fortress of pride surrounding the billionaire sheikh. His dark eyes, usually so impenetrable, flickered with something dangerously close to disbelief, and something softer, buried beneath layers of guarded distance. She stood there, the lonely maid, with trembling hands, and a secret that shattered the boundaries between servant and lord. The words she uttered, a name, a history veiled beneath servitude, hung like a fragile glass ornament, waiting to be shattered by a careless breath. The desert dawn filtered through the towering windows, its amber light casting elongated shadows across the marble floor, and for a moment, the palace felt less like a gilded cage and more like the battleground of shattered dreams. His voice, when it came, was suddenly quieter. The sharp edge had dulled, replaced by a question that demanded truth but feared its answer. "Tell me everything," he commanded, but his tone betrayed an unfamiliar vulnerability. The maid swallowed hard, her gaze flickering to the ornate rug beneath her feet, as she began to unravel the tapestry of her past, a past that linked her to the very heart of this distant emirate, though hidden beneath layers of silence and survival. She spoke of a family torn apart by intrigue, of promises broken by power-hungry men cloaked in luxury and deceit. Her voice trembled as she painted their downfall, a once proud lineage swallowed by betrayal, forcing her into this role behind golden doors, unseen and unheard. Yet her words carried more than sorrow. There was defiance, a vow not to be erased, not to vanish into the shadows that swallowed so many like her. The billionaire Sheikh's jaw tightened. His mind surged with questions. Why reveal such a secret now? Was this an act of desperation or a calculated gambit? His gaze softened imperceptibly, tracing the delicate curve of her face, illuminated by the soft morning light. She was no longer just a servant. She was a living reminder of the fragility behind power. "What game are you playing?" he demanded, tension snapping his tone back to its typical steel. But the fire in her eyes met his challenge with steady resolve. "No game," she whispered. "Just the truth. The truth you refuse to see." For a long, charged moment, silence reigned between them, a silence heavy with unspoken emotions. The opulence of the palace, the endless wealth, the rigid traditions, all felt distant compared to the raw authenticity of that encounter. The air was thick with scents of oud and jasmine, yet the room felt colder than the desert night, as if reality itself had shifted. He stepped closer, the scent of his expensive cologne mingling with the dust of the unknown past she carried. His voice dropped to a murmur. "You risk much, revealing such secrets, yet you expect mercy?" She met his gaze unwavering. "I expect nothing, but I won't live a lie." The defiance in her words peeled away some of his icy disdain. Behind the billionaire mask, a man weary of facades, of endless power plays, stirred uneasily. Her courage struck a chord he hadn't anticipated. For once, she challenged the unassailable throne he'd built with wealth and fear. Suddenly, the heavy oak door creaked open, breaking their charged silence. A figure glided into the room, sleek, elegant, radiating an icy calm that rivaled the Sheikh's own aura. His trusted advisor, Faisal, his dark eyes sharp as a falcon's, assessed the tension before speaking with neutral authority. "Your Highness, there's news from the southern border. The situation demands your immediate attention. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze flicked momentarily toward the maid, 1,000 unsaid words trapped between them. He inclined his head toward Faisal, but didn't move away. The unfinished story between them hung like a thread, pulling taut in the heat of the desert. "Wait here," he instructed the maid softly, then turned toward the golden doors leading to the council chambers. His footsteps echoed with a new weight, not just the burden of governance, but the stirrings of a personal storm, threatening to unravel the carefully constructed walls around his heart. Left alone in the vast room, the maid ran her fingers along the intricate carvings of the marble table, her mind racing with possibilities. The secret she had revealed could mean salvation or doom. She understood the dangerous game she'd entered, one where trust was a currency rarer than gold, and betrayal lurked behind every silken veil. Outside, the desert wind picked up, rustling the silk curtains like a restless spirit. Sunlight stabbed through the cracks in the window shutters, illuminating dust particles that danced like floating embers, fragile and fleeting. Somewhere deep within the palace, alliances shifted. Alliances born of whispered lies and desperate hope. When the sheikh returned, his expression was unreadable. The fire in his eyes was tempered with something new, an unspoken question. He stopped, just inside the doorway, fixing the maid with a gaze that burned hotter than the desert noon. "You spoke of a name," he said quietly. "Tell me, what does it mean to you?" Her breath caught. The room seemed to shrink around them, the space charged with electricity. If she answered, she would unleash a truth that could change everything. "I am the last of the Al-Karim line," she confessed, voice barely above a whisper. "And that name, a curse to some, a promise to others, is the legacy I carry." The billionaire Sheikh's eyes widened imperceptibly. For the first time, he saw beyond the facade of servitude, beyond the whispered title of Maid. He saw history, pain and pride woven into the very fiber of the woman who had dared to defy him. The silence stretched between them, a living thing, pregnant with consequence. Without warning, the servants' hall door burst open, and a breathless messenger stumbled in, clutching a rolled parchment sealed with the Emirate's emblem. "Your Highness, urgent correspondence from the capital," the man gasped. The sheikh's fingers trembled slightly as he broke the seal, unfolding the letter with deliberate care. His eyes scanned the ornate script, every muscle in his face tightening like a coiled spring. The maid stepped closer, drawn by the sudden change in his demeanor. Her heart thundered as the truth settled between them, heavier than the crown he wore. "The capital has fallen into chaos," he said finally, voice low yet fierce. "Enemies rise where we least expect. And the name you carry, it may be the key to more than your past. It may decide our future." She swallowed, the weight of destiny pressing down like the desert sun upon their shoulders. The game had only just begun, and the shadows gathering around the billionaire sheikh and his mysterious maid threatened to consume them both. Outside, the desert wind howled, a mournful cry that seemed to echo their peril. And somewhere, beyond the gilded walls, a hidden enemy smiled. The letter trembled slightly in the billionaire sheikh's hand, its ornate seal broken, the fragile parchment trembling as if it carried the weight of centuries. He folded it carefully, lips pressed in a thin, hard line. The quiet room seemed to expand, the endless marble and golden hues swallowed by a sudden darkness, the gravity of the words settling like a shadow, crawling across the sunlit floor. She stood, breathless, the confession still raw on her tongue. The name she bore, the Al-Karim legacy, hung between them like a bridge built from fragile glass. Shimmering and crackling under the growing tension. Al-Karim, he murmured, voice thick with unspoken histories. A name whispered in the halls of power and cursed in the alleys of betrayal. His eyes searched hers, fierce and searching, seeking the truth behind the fragile veil of her servitude. Her gaze did not falter. They believed they could erase us, but blood remembers. The air between them was charged, electric, the weight of 1,000 untold stories pressed down, heavy as the desert sun. For a fleeting moment, the walls of gold and marble ceased to feel like a prison and became the arena where past and future clashed violently. His footsteps echoed against the polished floor as he circled her, the cold elegance of his presence contrasting sharply with the fire burning in her eyes. Why now? His voice dropped to a sharp whisper. Why reveal such a dangerous truth here, beneath the eyes of the court? She swallowed hard, the silk of her sleeve brushing nervously against the cold stone. Because hiding only deepens the wound. And because you, more than anyone, need to understand what your throne is built upon. His eyes narrowed. You speak as if the sins of your ancestors are mine to bear. A throne without roots will crumble with the first storm, she said, voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. These enemies, these shadows closing in on us, they know the cracks to exploit. A flicker of doubt crossed his expression before the mask of the billionaire sheikh returned, impenetrable as ever. Speak plainly. What are these shadows? Before she could answer, the flame of a torch sputtered outside the tall window, casting fleeting darkness into the room. Outside, the desert winds howled like a wounded beast, stirring the curtains into restless waves. Suddenly, a faint knock at the door punctuated the charged silence. The maid's heart seized. The sheikh motioned for silence, then opened the door to reveal a young messenger, sweat glistening on his brow despite the cool marble halls. Your Highness, the boy gasped, handing over another sealed scroll. From the Southern Council, urgent news! The sheikh's dark eyes clashed with the messenger's, sharp as a scimitar's edge. Without breaking his stoic demeanor, he tore open the seal and unfolded the paper. As his eyes raced over the lines, his jaw clenched, lips tightening with mounting fury. She watched, a pang twisting in her chest. This was no ordinary message. This was the spark threatening to ignite a powder keg. The rebels have seized control of Al-Zaran village, he said quietly. This is no mere border skirmish. They have backing from inside our own walls. His voice dropped, but carried the weight of impending war. And the Al-Karim name, it isn't just a relic. It could be the key to unmasking those who betray us. The maid's breath hitched. She had not anticipated the depth of the storm they now faced. Her past was no longer a secret shadow. It was the fulcrum on which the future teetered. Then she said slowly, "We must act before the venom spreads." The billionaire Sheikh's eyes hardened. He turned to the vast window, looking out over the endless dunes, sunlight burning fiercely against the crisp blue. This palace, these walls, they protect nothing if poison grows within. He pivoted sharply, regal and commanding, the burden of his crown evident in every measured movement. "Gather the council at dawn. We will root out this treachery, no matter who stands behind it." The maid felt a mixture of apprehension and resolve settling deep within her. The game had grown far more perilous than she anticipated, and the line between ally and enemy blurred dangerously. "As for you," the Sheikh's voice dropped to a nearly inaudible growl, "your secret is no longer yours alone to carry." Her eyes lifted, meeting the furnace of his gaze. "Prepare yourself. The legacy of Al-Karim is about to become the battlefield upon which this emirate's fate will be decided." A long silence stretched between them, thick with possibility and threat. The palace felt suddenly smaller, the golden halls echoing with the whispers of impending chaos. Then, from the darkest corner of the room, a shadow moved, a figure cloaked in silk and silence, eyes gleaming with dangerous intent. "Your Highness," the voice was smooth but cold, "not all legacies are honored. Some are buried permanently." The billionaire Sheikh's hand instinctively moved to the dagger at his side, muscles tensed, like a lion ready to strike. His eyes met the intruders, an enemy cloaked in familiarity. The battle for the Al-Karim name had begun, and in that instant, the desert wind outside howled louder, as if mourning the war to come. The candlelight flickered uneasily in the vast chamber, casting ghostly shadows that clung to the palatial walls like whispered secrets. The billionaire Sheikh stood rigid. The weight of the sealed scroll crushed between his fingers, as if its contents burned his flesh. Outside, the desert wind howled like a restless spirit, as if echoing the turmoil rising inside him. He turned slowly, eyes darkened by a storm no gold could soothe. His gaze, intense, unreadable, fell once more on the maid, the woman who had shattered his meticulously ordered world with a truth few dared utter aloud. "I did not choose this fate, nor did my ancestors," she breathed, stepping forward into the dim glow. Her voice trembled, yet held a fierce edge, a defiance born of years submerged beneath a crushing silence. "But it is ours, and now it binds us both." He closed the distance between them, with a stride that commanded the room's silence. The faint scent of sandalwood clung to his robes, mingling with the dusty dryness of the desert air that crept through cracked windows. "You carry a curse wrapped in legacy," he intoned, voice low but firm. "One that threatens to unravel the threads of power I have woven." Her eyes, dark pools of determination, locked with his unwavering gaze. "Then it is no longer merely your crown at risk," she replied, "but the lives of those who trust in your rule." The golden chandeliers above trembled faintly as a distant rumble vibrated through the palace walls. The Sheikh's lips pressed into a thin, hard line. Enemies within, enemies without. Friends disguised as foes, he muttered. Tell me, what moves in the shadows, unseen? A silence hung heavy, dripping with unspoken fears. She hesitated, memories clawing at her throat like thorns. There are whispers of betrayal masked as loyalty, alliances forged in darkness rather than in light. Some who smile at your feet have sharpened knives behind your back. His jaw clenched, a flicker of pain flashing across his sculpted features. The palace that once gleamed like a fortress of invincibility suddenly felt like a cage of brittle glass. He bent forward, hands resting on the marble table etched with intricate arabesques, the cold surface a stark contrast to the fire ignited in his chest. Strength will be tested, he said quietly, and loyalty must be earned anew. The maid stepped closer, emboldened by his shift. And I will stand with you, she whispered fiercely, not as a servant bound by duty, but as the last voice of a forgotten line. A breathless moment passed, as their eyes held a silent accord, fragile yet resolute. The opulence surrounding them, the silk brocades, the gilded tapestries, the rare perfumes that filled the air, faded into insignificance compared to the raw truth binding them. Suddenly, the polished floor echoed with footsteps, soft but urgent. A shadow slipped through the towering doors. It was Faisal, the Sheikh's formidable advisor, his face a mask of restrained urgency. Your Highness, the southern borders burn, Faisal announced grimly. The rebels rally. Their strength grows by the hour. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze hardened. Have the Al-Karim's enemies begun their moves? He asked sharply. Faisal nodded. Yes, and the whispers tell of a gathering storm within the court itself. Trust will be our rarest commodity. The Sheikh's eyes flicked back to the maid. You must know, our enemies do not fear gold or force. They fear truth and what it can unravel. Her heart hammered as she realized the magnitude of the peril. Her secret, once a solitary burden, now became a beacon, or a beacon for destruction. He moved toward the window again, watching the dunes ripple beneath a merciless sun. His silhouette was regal but haunted, a titan pressed down by unseen chains. The throne I claim is built not just on wealth or conquest, he murmured. It is a fragile weave of blood, honor, and shadows. The Al-Karim legacy. It is the thread that will either bind us or tear us apart. A sudden sharp rap startled them both. A messenger, breath ragged, bearing another sealed dispatch. With deliberate slowness, the Sheikh broke the seal. His lips tightened as he scanned the script, every line etching a deeper frown across his brow. They have attacked the Oasis stronghold, he declared, voice heavy with menace. And the assassins move closer than we dared imagine. The maid swallowed the rising tide of dread. Then we must strike first, before the desert devours us whole. His eyes found hers, blazing with a fierce resolve, tempered by a shadow of vulnerability few had ever glimpsed. There will be no mercy for those who betray, he vowed, voice like steel, tempered in fire. And yet, he hesitated, a flicker of something softer breaking through. I wonder if mercy is owed to those who fight, not with daggers, but with silence and secrets. She stepped forward, courage again swelling in her chest. Trust is earned with truth, not fear. And I will stand beside you, not as a pawn, but as a queen in this battle." Their hands hovered briefly, a spark of connection electric in the charged room. For the first time, the Sheikh allowed a sliver of hope to pierce his iron resolve, a hope born not of gold, but of shared pain and fragile truce. The door slammed open with violent force. A cloaked figure slipped inside, eyes glinting with cold calculation. The room chilled instantly, the air thick with menace. "Your Highness," the figure intoned, voice smooth yet venomous, "the past you seek to protect hides a poison deeper than any sword can cut." The Sheikh's hand fell to the jeweled hilt at his side, muscles coiled like a beast ready to pounce. His gaze cut through the dim light, locking onto the intruders with lethal intent. The game for the legacy had begun, and the desert's deadly silence was shattered forever. The night had fallen like a velvet curtain over the emirate. Swallowed beneath the vast canopy of stars that shimmered cold and unfeeling above. Inside the palace, the golden hues of the day faded to shadows, and the walls that once dazzled with opulence now seemed to close in like a cage. The Billionaire Sheikh stood rigid in the grand hall, the sealed dispatch clenched tightly in his hand, the weight of its contents heavier than any crown he bore. Behind him, the silence hung thick, eerily profound, broken only by the soft rustle of silk as the maid stepped closer, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and unwavering determination. "You carry a burden that could bring the entire house down." His voice was low, edged with a fierce darkness, tracing a fine line between accusation and despair. She met his gaze steadily. "I carry the truth," she said, quietly, "and it's the truth that others try to bury beneath lies and gold." The air between them sizzled with tension, fire beneath icy distance. The palace was no longer merely a home of lavish wealth. It had become a battleground where loyalties twisted like desert storms, and every whispered word could ignite a tempest. His fingers tightened around the parchment as shadows played. Across his sharp features, he turned, eyes narrowing, and paced with deliberate steps. "These rebels, masked in anonymity and backed by traitors, threaten everything we've built." She followed, words catching in her throat but her heart steady as steel. "Because the Al-Karim name is more than blood. It is the key to the fractures within this kingdom." He stopped abruptly, the dim light lifting the sharp angles of his face into a mask of cold resolve. "Then we must root out the rot before it spreads." His tone brooked no argument, yet there was something deeper beneath the command, a flicker of unease, a silent question echoing from the depths of his soul. The maid swallowed hard, stepping closer into the circle of his powerful aura. The scent of oud and spice swirled around them, a heady reminder of tradition and danger intertwined. "What do you plan to do?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper, but charged with urgency. He looked down at her, no longer a mere servant. She was the last echo of a forgotten lineage, a living connection to the fragile past against which the future teetered. His voice softened, almost vulnerable. "The council will meet at dawn. I will purge the shadows with fire and steel. But you must be ready. For the secrets you guard now belong to the fate of this emirate. A shiver traced her spine, but defiance flared in her eyes. I have waited for this moment my entire life. The heavy oak doors groaned open again, revealing Faisal's tense figure. His dark eyes darted between the sheikh and the maid, sensing the storm that crackled in the air like distant thunder. Your Highness, Faisal said gravely, we have intercepted a message. Plans to strike the capital itself. The traitors grow bolder each hour. The sheikh's jaw clenched, a flash of cold calculation sharpening his gaze. Then the war is at our doorsteps. Not only the border, but the heart of the realm burns. He stepped forward, voice dropping so low it was almost a growl. They think to crumble us with lies and bloodshed, but they underestimate the strength lingering in the bloodline they despise. The maid's pulse hammered loud in her ears. The Al-Karim name won't be erased, not while I draw breath. A sudden gust slipped through the half-open window, dragging with it the distant howl of desert winds like an ominous herald. The chandeliers trembled, scattering faint prisms of light. In that fractured glow, their faces were moments apart, two souls bound by peril and a fragile trust. His hand brushed hers, a fleeting contact charged with unspoken promises and the weight of shared destiny. Time seemed to hold its breath. Then, as if torn from the shadows themselves, a sinister voice sliced through the silence from the far corner of the hall. Power built on forgotten sins always sinks into darkness. The figure stepped forward, cloaked in midnight silk, eyes gleaming with venom. And the Al-Karim legacy, it is a poison waiting to be unleashed. The billionaire sheikh's fingers instinctively clenched the jeweled hilt at his waist, muscles coiling beneath his robe. His eyes locked with the intruders, an enemy cloaked not just in shadow, but in a familiarity that sent a sudden chill deeper than the desert night. The room seemed to shrink around them, every breath electric with looming violence. The maid's heart skipped as the gulf between past and present collapsed into this moment fraught with peril. This ends now, the sheikh declared, voice like thunder rolling across the dunes. No secret, no legacy will fracture this empire while I draw breath. The adversary smiled, cold and cruel. Then let the true battle begin. The war not just to preserve thrones, but to bury the truths that could bring them down. Outside, the desert wind rose again, howling a mournful refrain that echoed through the palace corridors. Somewhere deep within those gilded walls, the first move had been made, and the sheikh's world tilted on the edge of ruin. As the emissaries of dusk vanished into the cold night, the sheikh turned to the maid, his eyes a storm of fire and shadows. Prepare yourself, he said quietly, voice thick with both promise and threat, because the secrets you keep may be the dagger that saves us, or the one that pierces our hearts. And in the silence that followed, beneath the shattered stars, the bound fates of the billionaire sheikh and the last scion of Al-Karim reached a precipice no one dared name. The palace doors slammed shut behind the intruder's retreating figure, and the desert swallowed a whispered warning, one that no crown, no fortune could shield them from. The dawn had barely begun to surrender its pale hues when the billionaire sheikh returned to the grand hall. His features, usually carved in imperious calm, now bore the weight of a storm barely contained. The sealed letter, pressed against his palm, a silent testament to the chaos seething beyond palace walls. She stood where he had left her, still poised between servant and sovereign in his eyes, yet transformed irrevocably by the secret she dared to entrust him with. The air shimmered with the scent of oud and desert haze. The palace's opulence dimmed beneath the heavy shadow of impending upheaval. His eyes locked onto hers, searching, demanding. The Al-Karim name? It is more than history, isn't it? His voice was low and rough with the grit of sleepless nights. She met his gaze unflinchingly. It is a curse and a shield, woven into the blood that runs cold through the veins of this emirate. Her words trembled with the agony of a past, filled with broken promises, stolen legacies, and silent battles fought in shadows. The air between them thickened. The silence screamed louder than any clamor. Finally, the Sheikh's voice broke through, a razor cutting through the tension. You have endangered yourself once by revealing the truth. Are you prepared to face what comes next? Her fingers clenched the hem of her simple dress, the smooth fabric a stark contrast to the turmoil inside her. I have lived my entire life in the shadows of silence. If my truth burns the palace down, then let it be. He took a step closer, the heat from his presence bleeding into the cold morning air. His palm brushed lightly against hers, an unspoken truce, fragile yet defiant. Then we are bound by fate, you and I. A sudden rush of footsteps shattered the fragile moment as Faisal appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of grim urgency. Your Highness, the southern border rebels have rallied and taken control of the oasis stronghold. The Sheikh's jaw tightened, his eyes sharp as a spear's tip. This rebellion festers deeper than we feared, he muttered, voice laden with quiet fury. Reports suggest inside betrayal, Faisal added. The traitorous faction carries the Al-Karim banner. Her breath caught. The whisper of treason was no longer just a rumor, but a devastating truth threatening the very foundation of the emirate. The Sheikh's dark gaze bore into hers. Your bloodline is not merely a relic, but the key to unmasking those who conspire in darkness. She nodded, feeling the slow hardening of resolve. Then the legacy I carry must become a weapon. The marble walls, awash in golden light, seemed to echo with the weight of their shared destiny. A tapestry of power, pride, betrayal, and fragile hopes sewn tightly together. An idea took root in his mind. Tomorrow, the council convenes. We will expose the traitors, no matter their rank or disguise. His words were a command, but beneath his steely tone lay a vulnerable hope that justice might yet prevail. Her eyes flickered with a fire that rivaled the desert sun. And what of those whose loyalty remains hidden behind smiles? She asked softly. The Sheikh paused, the air thickening with unspoken fears. Those who hide daggers beneath robes deserve no mercy. Their fleeting contact lingered, an electric charge humming in the space between honor and survival. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors groaned open once more, and a new figure stepped forward. A woman draped in midnight silk, her eyes like shards of obsidian, gleaming with cold calculation. The room's temperature seemed to drop, the shadows lengthening in her wake. "Your Highness," she purred, voice smooth, yet poisonous. "The Al-Karim heritage is a stain on this realm. It is time to wash it away." The Sheikh's hand dropped to the jeweled hilt at his side, muscles taut like a coiled serpent. He met her gaze with unyielding intensity. "Speak plainly. The so-called legacy you cherish," she hissed, "is the root of all decay. It breeds rebellion and sows dissent. Only by burying it can the emirate survive." She stepped closer, her silken steps echoing, a serpent circling its prey. "Have you forgotten who once wielded the power behind your throne? Those shadows have always been stronger than your gilded crown." The maid's heart pounded fiercely. This was not merely a challenge. It was an invitation to war, cloaked in velvet. "Threats." The billionaire Sheikh's voice was a low growl. "Then let us remind them why I am the ruler here." He turned to the maid, eyes blazing. "Your bloodline is the key, but also the shield. We must wield it carefully, or it will destroy us both." Her breath quickened. "I am ready." Outside, the desert wind swirled violently, carrying with it the faint, mournful cries of a land on the brink. The midnight-cloaked woman smiled, cruel and certain. "The game has just begun, and soon all secrets will burn." The Sheikh's gaze darkened like a gathering storm. "Then we will meet the fire with fire." As the shadows deepened around them, the palace held its breath, a fragile fortress poised on the edge of chaos. And beneath the swirling desert night, the secrets of the Al-Karim bloodline. Whispered promises of both salvation and ruin. A single candle flickered, then waned, plunging the chamber into a silence that screamed of battles yet to come. The heavy oak doors closed with a muted thud behind Faisal as the weight of his urgent news lingered in the air. The scent of frankincense curled in the dim light, weaving with the sharp aroma of desert spices, curling around the towering pillars like invisible serpents. The mansion, once a sanctuary of gilded serenity, now tightened its golden grip, suffusing the vast hall with the oppressive heat of suspicion. The billionaire Sheikh stood motionless beside the towering window, his silhouette a fortress carved in shadows and sunlight. His eyes, dark as obsidian and sharper still, traced the rippling dunes beyond the marble threshold. Yet it was the glance he cast back to the maid, the last scion of Al-Karim, that rivaled the unforgiving desert in its intensity. "She is no longer merely a whisper in the halls," he murmured, the timbre of his voice tinted with equal parts command and something less nameable, but a storm. The maid held her ground, the simple folds of her dress barely brushing the marble floor, but her spirit ignited with a quiet fire. The revelation of her bloodline had shattered the fragile facade between them, stitching at the seams of loyalty and doubt. Yet now the walls pressed closer, the palace no longer sheltering, but threatening to suffocate. "Every moment we delay," she said softly, eyes flickering like an ember caught in the wind. "They strengthen their grasp. These traitors, they weave shadows inside our court." Her voice, though measured, trembled with the weight of her burden, a burden she carried alone too long. The Sheikh's jaw clenched, the hardness of his profile, sharp against the soft glow spilling from the crystal chandeliers. "The oasis stronghold is lost," he declared, voice a low growl. "A wound bleeding through our defenses." His fingers tightened around the sealed scroll he still held, the parchment crisp, yet heavy with ominous truths. "The Al-Karim banner flies again," he whispered. As if invoking a curse or summoning a prophecy, for a fleeting moment, silence settled between them, thick and potent as the summer heat pounding against the palace windows. The desert sands outside shifted endlessly, indifferent to mortal struggles. But within these walls, the battle had only just begun. The maid stepped forward, the soft rustle of her movement echoing like a heartbeat. Then the legacy. "We bear must become a shield, not a shackle. We must not only expose those who cloak themselves in loyalty, but root out every serpent in the garden." His eyes met hers, fire meeting defiance in a moment stretched thin by fate. "And what of those who smile in your face while clutching daggers in their hands?" His voice dropped, heavy with ancient wounds and new suspicions. "They await the moment to strike," she replied, voice steady, despite the storm raging beneath. "But our truth will be the blade they never see coming." A gust slipped through the half-open window, stirring the heavy brocades into restless waves, like silken specters dancing in the fading light. The faint echo of a fountain far off whispered its refusal to be silenced, a subtle rebellion amidst the tension. Before he could answer, the chamber's atmosphere fractured again as the heavy doors groaned open, revealing a figure swathed in midnight silk. Her presence was a cold shadow cast over warm gold, a disruption in the carefully balanced dance of power. "Your Highness," she intoned, voice smooth and venomous, like liquid poison pooling beneath the marble tiles. "The Al-Karim legacy, it is a stain that must be purged. Its roots are rot that spreads beyond control." The billionaire Sheikh's body tensed, fingers curling instinctively toward the jeweled hilt concealed beneath his robe. His gaze, razor-sharp and unyielding, fixed upon the intruder. "You forget," he said slowly, words tempered steel, "that from rot often rises new life. The name you despise, it is intertwined with this emirate's fate." The woman's eyes glinted with cruel certainty. "Then it is time to sever the branch before the whole tree falls." She stepped forward, silk whispering secrets as she circled, a serpent hunting in familiar terrain. The maid's breath hitched, the room closing in as ancient enmities stoked the furnace of conflict. The Sheikh moved between them, a tempest barely contained. "This battle is not of foreign armies, but of blood and betrayal. We will not falter." He turned to the maid, the storm swirling in his dark eyes, softened by a fragile hope. "You bear the legacy, and with it the power to heal or to destroy." Her fingers brushed his sleeve in a tentative touch, a spark of connection in the gathering darkness. "Then let us forge from this fire a blade that cuts through lies." Suddenly, the palace trembled, not from the desert winds, but from a distant clamor. The echo of unseen forces stirring beyond golden walls. Whispers of revolt and shadowed alliance crept through the corridors like a rising tide. The Sheikh's voice dropped to a growl. The time for subtlety ends. We must strike before the poison spreads. The midnight-cloaked woman smirked, the cruel curve of her lips a razor's edge. Then let the game begin anew. But know this, legacies are not so easily bent or broken, and the past always fights back. The maid's heart thundered, adrenaline mingling with fear as the room held its breath. In that charged stillness, the three figures became embodiments of destiny, each poised on the cusp of war, love, and ruin. Outside, the desert night deepened, stars glinting cold and indifferent above endless dunes. But within the palace, beneath crystal chandeliers and gilded ceilings, the true battle had ignited. A battle for loyalty, power, and the fragile hope of redemption. The last word left the Midnight Lady's lips like a dagger. Remember, Your Highness, secrets are the deadliest weapons of all. The Billionaire Sheikh's hand closed tight around the hilt at his side, eyes blazing with relentless resolve. Then we will wield them before they wield us. A tremor passed through the marble floor, subtle but certain, as if the very foundations of the emirate quaked with impending storm. And in that suffocating silence, broken only by the distant howl of the desert wind, the future hung by a thread finer than silk, unsuspecting, fragile, and dangerously ready to unravel. The air in the grand hall swelled heavy, oppressive, as the sun beat down mercilessly on the endless dunes outside. The chandeliers scattered fractured light over the polished marble floors, yet the warmth never reached the cold tension nesting between the Billionaire Sheikh and the maid. Their eyes locked in a silent battle, the weight of secrets bowing the air with unspoken threats and fragile hopes. He stepped forward, his movement deliberate, a predator closing the distance with fluid grace. The scent of sandalwood trailed him like a shadow as his dark gaze bore into hers, seeking answers buried beneath layers of silent defiance. Your courage borders on recklessness, he whispered, his voice a low rumble that seemed to shake the golden pillars surrounding them. She met him without flinching, her chin rising with the stubborn fire that had refused to be extinguished since the first day she had dared speak her truth. I have nothing left to lose, she said softly, voice steady, despite the storm raging inside. Our enemies wear masks, hiding in plain sight. You suspect betrayal, know it to be true. But loyalty, true loyalty, still breathes, even in the darkest corners. He studied her, the shadow of doubt flickering like a candle flame behind his unyielding eyes. For a moment, the billionaire's armor fell away, to reveal a man torn between the legacy he inherited and the uncertain path ahead. The burden of power weighed endlessly on broad shoulders. But tonight, something deeper undercut his command, a flicker of hope sparked by this woman who stood fearless in the halls of his opulence. Tomorrow, he said, voice hardening, the council will gather. The roots of this rebellion must be unearthed. Those who spread discord will face justice without mercy. Her heart quickened, pulses pounding like desert thunder beneath piercing silence. And what of forgiveness? she breathed, the question a fragile plea. Can there be redemption if hatred blinds our hearts? He shook his head slowly, conceding no answer, but the ice in his stare thawed just enough to admit the possibility. Perhaps, he whispered, but trust must be earned anew, like the desert after rain, barren, but full of promise. The delicate moment shattered as the heavy oak doors swung wide, admitting Faisal once more, his face grim as a gathering storm. "Your Highness," he announced, voice clipped and urgent, "another message has arrived." The Sheikh's eyes narrowed, the flicker of fatigue tempered by fierce resolve. The sealed scroll he tore open carried the weight of impending doom. His fingers trembled imperceptibly as he read. The capital's defenses falter. The traitors grow bolder. Plans whisper of shadows moving through the palace. The heart is no longer safe. The maid stepped closer, breath shallow, the air thick with possibility. Her secret, once a solitary burden, had transformed into a beacon in the dark, illuminating paths none dared tread. "Then we have little time," she said, voice edged with steel. "The past and present intertwine. One misstep, and everything falls." His gaze caught hers, searing with expectation and unspoken promises. "We stand together," he vowed. "This legacy, both curse and blessing, will be the sword we wield." A sudden chill swept through the hall as a figure emerged from the shadows, slender, composed, with eyes that glimmered like onyx under the palace's opulent glow. The woman stepped forward, silk whispering secrets with every step, her smile a blade wrapped in velvet. "Your Highness," she purred, voice dripping with poison, "you cling to legends of bloodlines and honor. But this empire thrives on power, not on ancient grudges." The Sheikh's hand moved instinctively to the jeweled hilt at his side, muscles coiling like a spring ready to strike. His voice was cold, sharp as desert steel. "Speak clearly, Layla. Your veiled threats do not intimidate me." Her laughter was soft and venomous. "Then understand this. The Al-Karim name brings nothing but chaos. To save the emirate, it must be crushed, buried beneath the sands from which it crawled." The maid's breath caught, the cold pit of fear twisting her stomach. Yet her resolve blazed brighter than ever. "The legacy lives because we refuse to fade." The Sheikh's eyes bore into the midnight woman's with ferocity, a tempest rising in their depths. "This war will be fought in the open and through shadowed whispers alike. We will claim victory, no matter the cost." Layla's smile widened dangerously. "The cost will be greater than you imagine," she said, voice dropping to a near hiss. "Alliances will fracture. Trust will shatter." Her gaze flicked to the maid. "And some secrets should remain buried." A sudden commotion echoed from the corridor. Raised voices, the clatter of hurried footsteps. The palace seemed to hold its breath as a breathless messenger appeared, delivering a final, devastating report. The Sheikh broke the seal with a grin set to his jaw. He scanned the message swiftly, the faintest tremor betraying the storm within. "But trusted ally has fallen," he declared, voice taut with fury and disbelief. "Betrayed by one we called friend." The maid's hand involuntarily sought his, fingers trembling yet resolute. The fragile bridge between them held firm. A lifeline. against the rising tide of chaos. "We are surrounded by shadows," he growled. "Enemies not just outside, but within every golden corridor." Her gaze hardened. "Then our fight must be sharper than their knives. We cannot falter." He turned toward the expansive windows, the inflexible dunes stretching endlessly beneath a sky ignited with the first stars. The cool desert night bore witness to their silent vow. "The war for this emirate's soul has begun," he murmured, "and to win, we may have to sacrifice everything, even the truth we hold most dear." Beneath the crystalline ceiling, the fragile light flickered once, sputtered, and vanished, leaving the palace cloaked in shadows deeper than night. Outside, the desert wind whispered its mournful song, carrying secrets that could topple crowns and ignite thrones. And in that silence, between the promise of dawn and the menace of dusk, a single thought cut sharper than any dagger. The greatest traitor might be closer than either of them dared to imagine. The morning sun spilled gently over the emirate, casting warm hues over golden domes and endless sands. Inside the grand hall, where shadows from the night still clung faintly to marble pillars, the Billionaire Sheikh stood poised, the weight of the past and future pressing heavily upon him. Beside him, the Maid, no longer just a servant, but the last scion of the Al-Karim line, held her head high, her eyes meeting his with quiet defiance and unyielding hope. The palace had witnessed their battles, whispered secrets, and fragile alliances. Now, as the first light breathed life into the ornate tapestries and polished floors, it witnessed the culmination of a saga woven. From pain, betrayal, and unexpected love, "We stand at the threshold," the Sheikh muttered, voice low yet resolute. "Our enemies, within and without, have been unmasked, and the shadows that threaten to consume us have been chased back into the void." The Maid's hand brushed lightly against his sleeve, an unspoken vow between them that the legacy they shared would no longer be a chain of suffering, but a bond of strength. "The Al-Karim name," she whispered, "will rise from ashes, reclaimed and honored." Their journey had been fraught with peril. The treacherous whispers in golden corridors, the silent knives cloaked beneath smiles, the rebellion stirring on the borders, all had tested their resolve. Yet standing side by side, they had faced the storm and emerged not broken, but unshaken. The council chamber's heavy doors opened behind them, and the loyal allies they had gathered over time entered, their faces marked by fatigue, yet alight with newfound determination. The traitors had been revealed. Those who sought to poison the emirate for their gain were banished, their schemes unraveled by truth and courage. In the heart of that grand room, the Sheikh addressed his people not as a cold ruler, but as a man transformed, tempered by love and the weight of sacrifice. "This emirate is our home, built on honor and blood, but most of all, on truth. Let no betrayal darken its halls again." The Maid stepped forward, no longer a shadow behind gilded doors, but a queen in her own right. Her voice carried the strength of centuries. "We are heirs of a legacy too powerful to be silenced. Together, we will rebuild not just walls and wealth, but trust and hope." As the words settled over the room, a wave of quiet acknowledgement rippled through the gathered council. The whisper of forgiveness mingled with the promise of new beginnings. Outside, the desert breeze stirred the golden curtains, carrying scents of jasmine and frankincense, symbols of purity and sanctity. The sun rose higher, bathing the emirate in a light that spoke of renewal, of cycles completed, and horizons bright. The billionaire sheikh turned his gaze once more to the woman beside him. The walls that once isolated him, the cold fortress of ambition, seemed to melt away in the warmth of her presence. His eyes, deep pools of understanding now, conveyed everything words could not: regret, gratitude, and a love fierce enough to challenge even the desert sun. She smiled then, soft, radiant, and real, the first genuine light to touch his world. "What now?" she asked quietly, hope threading through her voice. He took her hand, his touch steady and sure, weaving futures from fragile promises. "Now," he said, "we build our story, a legacy not of shadows, but of light. Together." Their fingers entwined, like the threads of fate finally braided in harmony. The hardships endured, the battles fought, had forged a bond unbreakable. The palace embraced them, not as a gilded cage, but as the cradle of a new dawn. As they stepped onto the balcony overlooking the vast dunes, the horizon blazed with the fire of sunrise, painting the sky in hues of amber and gold. The emirate stretched endlessly before them, a canvas for their renewed reign and love. Children's laughter echoed softly from the gardens below, where life blossomed anew, flowers unfolding like hope itself. The sound stirred memories of promises whispered in the quiet darkness, now blossoming into a future rich and full. The sheikh's voice broke the peaceful silence, filled with tenderness and certainty. "Whatever storms may come, we will face them, together, unyielding." The breeze carried their whispered vows across the dunes, blending with the tireless song of the desert wind, a testament to endurance, rebirth, and love's unwavering power. In this moment, the emirate breathed with new life, its heart beating steady beneath the watchful eyes of two souls, bound by fate and fortified by truth. And so, beneath the endless sky, the billionaire sheikh and the last Al-Karim embraced a future forged in fire, sealed with forgiveness, and crowned with love. Their legacy no longer a shadow, but a beacon to all who dared to dream beyond the sands.